Well, good evening, everyone. Hang on just a second. We got a situation over here with the audio like we had last time. Very weird. See if that clears it up. It actually did not. Hang on just one sec, folks, and we'll get to you here in just a second. There's my problem. Look at that. Teamwork does make the dream work. All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Late Night Coffee Talk. I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, and this is that time where once a week I stop working on Texas independence, come in here, fire this bad boy up, and you and I have a quick conversation, right? You get to ask me whatever questions you want to ask me, and we've got some already in the queue for tonight. Pretty excited about that. But before we get started with that, let me just tell you how you ask your questions. It's real easy, right? So if you're watching on the Texian app at texian.app, right? All you got to do is just drop them in the Q&A section. It's literally marked Q&A, so it's just for us, right? So go drop your questions in over there. And look, if you're not already on the Texian app, now is a good time to make that happen. If you're watching anywhere else, YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble, no matter which one of the channels, which one of the pages, it is all the same. Just drop your question in chat. It all sort of aggregates over on the side of the screen over here. Kara goes through, she finds your questions, throws them in the queue. And then, I just kind of bounce back and forth between texting and here. But there is one other place that you can ask your questions. And that is by emailing us at coffeetalk@thetnm.org. That's coffee talk, all one word, at thetnm.org. And look, you can ask your questions about Texas independence, the Texit process, the T&M, Texas politics, economics, culture, whatever is on your mind. I am here until the questions run out or until the hour expires, whichever comes first. So be sure to get your questions in early. We've already got some submissions that have come in via email, so we got a few that we can go through tonight. But I'm looking for your questions in chat, so be sure you submit those ASAP. All right. Before we move on to your questions, we have to give a little shout out to the sponsor of Late Night Coffee Talk, Universal Coin and Bullion. For anyone who's followed the Texas Nationalist Movement, you know that we're on the forefront of the fight for political, cultural, and economic independence for Texas. And you also know that the battles for economic independence have led to some of the greatest victories we've had in our history and moved Texas closer to true and total independence. That includes helping get Texas its own equivalent of Fort Knox and helping get a framework passed for using gold and silver for everyday transactions. That's why we're proud to have Universal Coin and Bullion as a founding partner of the Texas Nationalist Movement. These are folks who understand precious metals and the independence that they bring, and they have also been in the fight for sound money, but for more than 30 years. Universal Coin and Bullion is a Texas company, and their founder, Mike Fulgens, is the man they call America's gold expert. But this is what sold me on them. When there was a push to put a sales tax on gold and silver right here in Texas, Mike led the fight to stop it. He hired the lobbyist. He ran the 2-year campaign, and he won. So that today, no Texan, not even you, pays a dime of sales tax on your gold and silver. Now, that's a man who doesn't just sell sound money. He fights for it. So whether you're looking for an on-ramp into the future of economic independence in Texas, or you're a longtime advocate for sound money, check out Universal Coin and Bullion right here in Texas. Visit their website at universalcoin.com and find out how you can get started securing economic independence for yourself and for Texas. Again, that's universalcoin.com.
This is a paid partnership with Universal Coin and Bullion. The Texas Nationalist Movement does not endorse Universal Coin and Bullion's products or services, and Universal Coin and Bullion had no role in any T&M editorial coverage. This is paid advertising, not investment advice. The Texas Nationalist Movement gives no investment, tax, or financial advice and makes no recommendation about any product.
All right, folks. And again, a big thank you to Universal Coin. Those guys are fantastic. All right. Let's get down to your questions. Let me go ahead and head on over to, oh, look at that. Wow. Yeah, cool. All right. So let's head over to email for tonight. This question is for Carl. Oh, you know what? If you don't forget to share, I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek of something at the end of tonight's broadcast. So don't go anywhere, right? All right. So this first question is from Carl. Carl asks, so if the Feds pass the 40 trillion mark that much ahead of projected, how soon should we expect 80 trillion? Double that, and the collapse of the federal government. Okay, so context for those of you who might be out of the loop on this. If you saw our reports that we released at the beginning of the month, hang on, let me share this thing with you. There it is. I think. There it is. Much better. Yes. All right. Add to stage. If you saw this, which is the website that we did, right? There's a report. Look at that. Let's get on the right side of this thing. So we released a report at the very beginning of the month, and it was called Can Texas Make It? It was an update of our 2015 report on the economic viability of an independent, self-governing nation of Texas. Basically asking the question, is there enough money coming into Texas to handle all, is there enough of a pool of resources and money to fund the government of a nation state, right? Again, two birds, one stone. It destroys the myth of Texas being a taker state. But more than that, it really tucks into the viability. In other words, is becoming a self-governing independent nation going to break us? And one of the things that was cited in there, and you can actually see it here, I probably should just blow this up so you can see it. Yeah, let me do that. One of the things you will notice on this page is this right here, this stat. It's in the report and it's on the webpage, cantexasmakeit.com. And so at the time the report was being prepared, okay, so I think we were up until 2 days before, just making sure that all the figures were updated, everything was good. So up to that point, the projection, and it's cited in the report, was that the federal government would cross the $40 trillion debt mark by October. And a lot of the projections seem to coalesce around the middle of October. Just obviously kind of teed up just right before the election. And so that's the figure that we went with. Well, lo and behold, what happened, right? What happened? Well, as of 2 days ago, that number flipped over, right? The federal government crossed the $40 trillion mark 2 days ago. So instead of mid-October, we're literally right about the third week of August. And so that's I'm pretty sure that is the origin of Carl's question. And I guess really it just depends on how much the federal government is going to spend. If we're at 40 trillion now and we're that far ahead of the pace, when will it be 80 trillion? I can't answer that because there seems to be no cap on the amount of borrowing and spending the federal government is doing. So it's funny because those of you, I don't know if you saw, but I did an interview on the Chris Salcedo show this morning. And it was, we talked about this report. The interview was about this particular report. And, you know, afterwards, Karen and I were talking about it. And we were talking about this $40 trillion thing. And she's like, I just wonder, like, how much it's increased in the last 2 years. So went and pulled the data, right, to go see what the data actually said. Don't like to guess. And lo and behold, we pulled the data, ran the chart, and it increased in the last 2 years between 5.5 to $5.6 trillion. I mean, that's massive, right? So if we're, just round it down to five, right? Let's just say conservatively. If we're 5 trillion in the last 2 years, we know that the government's obligations, they don't have enough tax money coming in to cover all the chips on the table, to use a casino analogy, or cover all the chips on the floor. So how much is that borrowing going to accelerate, right? We don't know the answer to that question. But I don't know that it has to reach $80 trillion to say that's when the federal government will collapse, right? I think, and I would say this is a well-informed opinion, I think we're watching it collapse in real time, right? I think we're seeing it happen. It's not happening catastrophically and overnight, but I think we are watching this entire thing fall down around us. Hence the sense of urgency. Why are we constantly ringing the alarm bells? Well, it's not because we want to bring gloom and doom. It's because if we don't warn others, then we are responsible, right? We have a responsibility, if we know that there is danger coming, to warn others. And it's why the issue of Texas becoming an independent nation is so urgent right now. And look, if anyone out there thinks that, well, it's $40 trillion and they'll pull out of this nosedive, here's what I want you to think about. I think it was 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, our compatriots in New Hampshire, with the whole NH exit movement up there, actually got a piece of legislation filed that said, if they wanted to have a vote on this issue as well. They're going about it a different way, but they got a bill filed that essentially would have set $40 trillion as the trigger for the vote, to basically say, if the federal debt hits 40 trillion, then the vote happens automatically, right? They set it as a trigger bill. Now, it didn't pass, but that just tells you how far we've come, right? In the sense that it had to be 4 years ago, right? I think. Anyway, it's how far we've come. Now it's $40 trillion in the blink of an eye. So I don't think it has to be 80 trillion, Carl. I don't. I think we're watching it happen, as I said, in real time right now. And, we're either going to, as I said before on here, as I said on Salcedo this morning, Texas will be independent by design or by default. You don't want default. You want by design. You want to be able to set the terms of your exit. You want to have a structured withdrawal. You don't want to be in the ruins of the collapse when it happens. So, and let's not forget, even the government themselves say they've got 20 years, and that's it, until there's no amount of tax they can levy, or how do they put it? There's no amount of tax they can levy, or no amount of spending they can cut to get out of the nosedive. That's real, and that's from them. That's not from us. That's from the federal government themselves. So anyway, Carl, thank you very much for your question. For those of you joining us, coming in a little bit late, be sure to get your questions in chat wherever you are chatting: YouTube, X, Facebook, Rumble, wherever you're seeing this. Drop your question. not in the comments. It's got to be in the chat. Finding out that that people are learning there's a difference between the two. But make sure you drop them in the chat. So get your questions in. Additionally, if you're watching on the Texit app, right, our very own in-house live streaming, organizing platform, use the Q&A section and drop your question in there. Oh yeah, let me do this too. If you don't know what I'm talking about the Texian app, let me jingle your memory here. Well, I can't. It won't let me. That, my friends, is what I would call all kinds of disappointing. That the interface is not working. Why does this not surprise me? Technical problems last week, technical problems this week. It's very, very frustrating. Okay. Let's get down to the questions over on Texian. Weird. Okay. Whatever. We will. Somewhat. Hang on. This is going to be fun. Jason says there is no way that Texas could go completely independent. You, sir, are 1,000% wrong. Right? You're 1,000% wrong. If you want to know, go to vtnm.org. Right? You'll be able to figure that out. All right. Let's get over here to texting. Oh wow. All right. This one is from John. John asks, any thoughts on the Orwellian flock ALPR cameras? Yes, I have many thoughts about the flock cameras. I despise mass surveillance. And I think it is a fundamental violation of our rights. No matter how much good law enforcement and others get on social media and promote that they solved this case with flock or that case with flock, the potential for abuse and misuse, which has already been proven, 100%. It is warrantless mass surveillance, and the organization is going to be talking about this a little bit more. I want to connect up with John Boucher. Some of you guys may remember he ran against Will Metcalf for state rep over in Montgomery County, and actually interviewed him on the Texas News Podcast as a candidate. He's been doing some great work over there in Montgomery County and elsewhere, exposing the entire network of the flock cameras. I've talked on this broadcast before about the work that Ben Jordan, who is a guy on YouTube, love to watch his channel, but Ben has done some tremendous work exposing the vulnerabilities of the flock camera network and why they're just horrible. I mean, they're horrible on their face, right? But from a privacy and security standpoint, I don't know that they outweigh any sort of public good that they could promote, because they're just that bad. So, by the way, that whole statement that I just made right there will probably get me a cease and desist letter from Flock, because they are aggressive. I mean, they're like Scientologist aggressive. It's insane. But the TNM is going to be coming out publicly very soon on the flock cameras. It's in the works right now. We got to get a couple of things cleared up first. But anyway, John, thank you for that question. All right, let's try. I'm trying not to focus in on one. Here we go. Ooh, this is a good one. Oh, this is a really good one, Chris. Okay, so Chris asks, do the high-paid political consultants that advise our state legislators and senators represent Texas politicians only, or are they a conglomerate that represent legislators across the states? That is, so let me just see how I can answer this, because I've got some firsthand experience with this one as of late, and you will see why, some of the fruits of that here in just a bit. But a lot of these consultants, it just depends, right? So you have consulting firms and you have consultants. And consulting firms may have multiple consultants under one roof, which is not unusual, or they may be a consulting firm where they do many things, but they do it as an entity. And then you have just sort of individual consultants, right? Political consultants that just they kind of just do their thing, and they may work for one client or they may work for many clients, and so that's a mix, right? So to your point, some advise just they kind of work in Texas. They work a handful of candidates. They may work one candidate. Some others, they may spread out across, and many do spread out across multiple states. I guess I guess you'd call him Greg Abbott's chief consultant, Dave Carney. I mean, that guy, I think, lives in New Hampshire. So, it's like, I mean, it's that whole kind of political consultant class is just kind of smeared all over. But what I'm going to say, though, to add something to the answer, which probably is not very satisfying, is that as part of my day job, what I do to earn money as a technology consultant, and in the process of doing some work for the TNM, it brought me to do a complete analysis of the entire campaign finance universe here in Texas. Historically, this up to this last primary, right? Still got some things. We got campaign finance reports from the TEC. There was the mid-year reports were filed in July, so got a lot of updated data. But I'm just going to say this, is that in mapping the flow of money and like where it comes from, who it goes to, how it's spent, doing that across the entire sort of political sphere here in Texas, there were some real interesting observations from that data, like exactly how much money flows in from outside of Texas, which is, I mean, it's shocking the amounts of money. As an overall percentage, whatever. But where it flows to, I think, is the most important part of that conversation. And so what I can tell you is this, Chris, sort of ahead of any public revelations about the analysis that we've done related to campaign finance here in Texas. What I can tell you is this: is number one, what we would consider the political establishment tends to use a very limited subset of political consultants and consulting firms. Those political consultants and consulting firms tend to handle their campaign spends with a very limited set of vendors. So mailers, television advertising production, paid block walking, all these, they deal with a very specific set of vendors. And a lot of the ones that are operational or were operational during the primaries, I'm sure they still are because they got people across the finish line. Not all, but most spun out of a older, larger political consulting firm that was firmly political establishment, like hardcore political establishment. So while there seem to be a few more players on the board now, it's all sort of a continuance of that work. So that's one observation. There is kind of a group of them. The second observation is they all run the same playbook. The timing, we saw this particularly when it came to attack mailers for Texas First Pledge signers. They're using the same templates for mailers, the same templates for ads. there is a playbook that that grouping of them seem to be running out of. That's number two. The third one is, and what I think is frankly going to be the biggest revelation from that, is how the money flows from a bunch of C4 political advocacy, social advocacy nonprofits, from C4s into federal PACs, into state PACs, and then is either directly donated by the PAC to a candidate or spent in support of that candidate. And what makes that interesting is that unlike federal PACs and state PACs that have to show their donors, they got to show their work, right? Who donated? This person donated. This is what they do for a living. This is how much they donated. That's all part of campaign finance disclosure stuff. And I know because I have to file for both of TNM's PACs every 6 months, right? So we have to do that too. But C4s do not have to disclose their donors, which is good news for those of you who donate to the TNM, right? Because I'm sure you don't want your name circulating around in some database that has to go to the federal government. The downside of that is that C4s can donate to those federal PACs, and those or spend, and those federal PACs can then turn around and give that money to the state PAC. So even though a state PAC can't accept corporate money, federal PACs and the C4s, that's a whole different story. And so there is this flow that goes from these C4s to these federal PACs to these state PACs. And because C4s don't have to disclose their donors, and C4s can, unlike political action committees and candidates, they can accept contributions from outside of the United States. So, but because that's obscured, there's no way to be able to track the flow of foreign money into C4s, which eventually end up in federal PACs or state PACs, and then on down the line into campaigns here in Texas. So very interesting finding, and the constellation is mapped. And those of you that have got experience in data analysis, when you hear me say the constellation is mapped, you know that what's happened over here on this side is we have network mapped the entire campaign finance universe here in Texas, and it is enlightening. But we still got a lot more work to do on it. That project has been running since March. If that tells you anything. So, to your point, Chris, yes, I would say that maybe there are a handful that of political consultants that represent Texas politicians only. Or, I mean, I think there are probably some that have they've made a personal decision to only represent Texas candidates, but the vast majority, I don't believe that they've done that out of some twinge of conscience, right? That they say, well, I'm only going to deal with Texas because I'm Texas first. I think a lot of it is just scale and capacity. I mean, when we were developing the software for Mac Duncan and Take Texas Bank, Texas First Pledge, because remember, we just rebuilt everything ourselves. One of the things that we found out in that process is there is no single source comprehensive list of elected positions here in Texas, but the estimate was somewhere around 35,000 elected positions all throughout Texas. So to say that political consultants could feed at the Texas trough only and retire off of that is an understatement. They really don't have to take clients anywhere else. There's plenty of work here. So anyway, Chris, thank you very much for that question. All right, let's get over here and see what we got. Got a couple here. Okay, this is from Debbie. Debbie asks, do you think on YouTube, asks, do you think President Trump will pause the November midterm election due to election fraud infrastructure across the United States and including Texas? I don't know. I can't answer that question. I guess I can, because you asked what do I think, and so you're asking me personally what I think. Um, I can't read the mind of Donald Trump. I don't know that anybody can. He can be quite mercurial, right? That being said, I can tell you what I'm hearing is that the people that are on the left side of the spectrum are fully expecting that move. They're fully expecting it. The whole chatter among the left is that whole press conference he had and the release about the election files and everything else. They firmly believe is the pretext for him to do something very much like this. And so they're I mean, they're running around like with their hair on fire about this, right? I mean, they're just kind of waiting for it. So that being said, I don't know that even if he did pause it, that ultimately he could get away with it. He will absolutely burn the center and the left, and any of the sort of pro liberty wing of the right. And what will be remaining will be not enough of a base to make a difference. So I don't know that he will do it. I think it's a bad idea. I think it's a horrible idea. But that being said, will he or won't he? Who knows, right? Only Donald Trump knows, and he may not even know until the day he wakes up to do it. Anyway, thank you for that question, Debbie. All right, let's get back over here to the Texian app. Wow. Okay. This is from Lee. Lee asks, Daniel, is the outlook good for getting the Texas Independence Referendum Act filed this session? Yes. I can't say any more about that. But the outlook is quite grand. So I would suggest that everyone buckle up. And I can't tell you sponsors or anything else. And look, we've talked about that year after year. There's good reason for that. So but the outlook is excellent for getting the bill filed. So good news for us, but this also means that for we as an organization, which is all of you, all of us, we need to be ready. We need to be building capacity. We don't need to be building capacity in November or December. We need to be building it right now. And I get it. Everybody's had a great summer, but game, set, match. I need the organizational development guys absolutely choking on local organizer applications. People volunteering, crawling all over themselves to organize in their areas, because we're going to need it. We're going to need it. That's just the reality of it. We have to be ready to meet the moment, right? We can't expect the moment to wait for us, right? We have to be ready to meet the moment, and that moment comes when the bill. It's time for the bill to get filed, and I don't foresee that we are going to have the same situation that we had the last two times it was filed and kind of be sliding in there at the last second. So I'm telling you, November, you have to be ready, right? So what does that mean? That means that those of you that are in counties that are not organized right now need to get over there on the Texian app, go to texian.app, get signed up, put your info in. It'll automatically put you in your county, right? Go ahead and get declared, become a declared Texian, and then hit the button to say, look, I want to help out. I want to help organize my county, right? We don't have enough applications and enough leadership in the right places to be able to fully take advantage of when that bill is filed. Now is the time, right? So go do the thing. If you're within the sound of my voice right now, whether it's live or on the recording, and you are not already signed in and you don't have somebody organizing in your area and you've got the ability to just have a conversation with somebody, then go apply. Just go get it done. It is super easy. Okay. But anyway, thank you for that question, Lee. Let's go here. Okay, this is fun. All right, so Terry asked this question. He says, does structured withdrawal, something I mentioned a moment ago, does structured withdrawal from the federal government require a reasoned agreement between us and them, or do you mean structured in some other sense? What specifically I was talking about, Terry, is that we want to exit in a planned way, right? We want a process that we exit, a structured withdrawal, right? AKA, we go through the process, we have the vote, we close the gaps, all the stuff in the Texas blueprint. That's the structured withdrawal. Does that mean we absolutely have to have an agreement with the federal government? No, but sitting down and having that conversation is something we want to do. But our independence is not contingent upon anyone's decision but the people of Texas, right? So, the reality of it is that the more time we have, the more structured and deliberate the withdrawal can be, and therefore the more stable it is on the other side. The opposite of that is we sit around and we twiddle our thumbs and we fiddle while Rome burns. The federal government collapses, it balkanizes, the economy crashes, every state fragments, people at each other's throats. And I'm not going to go any farther than that because this will get censored by the platforms, but you know what I'm talking about. And then Texas becomes independent by default because there is no centralizing power, right? But what does that also mean? Well, go look at the Balkans, right? Dude, I'm a Cold War kid. I remember what happened in Yugoslavia. Many of you on here do as well. You don't want that here. That's not what you want. There are a lot of people that talk a lot of trash about that kind of nonsense or get on there and post online the keyboard commandos, but I'm telling you, that's not what you want. Let's be grown folks. Let's do things grown folks' ways. And that means in this regard, we're deliberate with this process and not just as some byproduct. I mean, I don't want Texas to be sticking up out of a heap of ashes. I want us away from the mess, right? As best we can, because let's be honest, the collapse of the federal system in the United States will have global impact. And so we need to insulate ourselves from that as much as we possibly can. So that's what I meant, Terry. Thank you for that. All right. Tom. Hey, Tom. Tom asks, will the uncontrolled debt contribute to the dollar being discontinued as the worldwide currency? Yeah, I mean, I think the moves are already being made. The faith in the ability of the federal government to long-term pay its debts. And look, there are an unprecedented number of states that are following in the footsteps of what Texas has been doing. Now, granted, we're still the ones with the depository, right? But the transactional gold bill, 1056, it is effectively a proto-currency, right? And now the issuance from the comptroller's office of the redbacks, right? And I mean, there's a lot of moves happening here in Texas, and now it's starting to happen in other states. Other states are starting to have this. Well, what does that tell you? They want the ability to be able to transact in the absence of a federal dollar by something that is real. They want stability, and it's not something that they are seeing on the federal government. And I don't think these are guys just, I think some of these politicians will say publicly that, hey, it's a good plan B, but the reality is, I think a lot of them understand that the writing is on the wall. And if they're not making preparations now, then, problems ahead. When the calamity hits, it's too late. This is, again, why I keep talking about capacity building in the TNM. November comes and things happen and the bill gets filed and we're not ready. Well, you never catch up. You just don't, right? So now take what we're talking about there, capacity building for just the vote, and extend that out to a complete collapse of the federal system, the financial system, the monetary system. Preparation's key, right? Once those things, as my daddy used to say, when it falls like a turd from a tall horse, you're just gonna get splattered, right? It's the way it is. But your best bet against that is distance. You put distance between you and the horse. All right. Okay. Let's go here. Hang on. Let me check over here. Oh, yeah. Hey, we're beyond the bottom of the hour. But if you have questions, you can still try to squeeze them in. I'll try to get to them. Drop them in the chat wherever you're watching this. If it's on the texting app, drop them in Q&A. You can email them in also to coffeetalk@vtnm.org. And look, it'll be scrolling down there. You can see it. All right. Let me get over here and check. Speaking of... All right. We're good there. Let's see what we got over here. I got way too many tabs going, folks. All right, let's do this one here. Trading for Science says if Texas becomes independent, I'm thinking, will other states follow Texas? I would believe so. Right. I would think that would be the case. I mean, we already know that there are other states that are working on this. And how do we know this? Well, I am about to show you. There we go. Let's share that. Put this up on the screen. Boom. There we go. Look at that. Oh, well, you can't because I haven't put it on the screen yet. There we go. Look at that. I mean, we launched an entire website for the purpose of resourcing these folks, right? So we know from polling that right now on a fair ballot, the question asked properly, there are about 132.2 million people scattered throughout all 50 states that would vote to leave the union if they simply were asked on a ballot, right? So, I mean, we know this to be the case. You want to take a look. Let's see, where's our map on here? There it is. Look at this right here, right? You've got obviously us here, but you've got Free Louisiana and Louisiana. You got Cal Exit here. You've got what will be the regrouping of the Alaskan Independence Party here. You've got New Hampshire here. You've got hopefully the Second Vermont Republic reorganizing. The movement in Maine. We know that they were organized in North Dakota before, and Idaho, and Oregon, and Washington State, and Oklahoma, and Florida, right? So we know that there have been organized movements there before. Hopefully they will be reorganizing as well. But, really to your point, will we be alone? No. Will other states follow? Absolutely. Will all the states follow? Probably not. But the fact of the matter is it is up to each state individually to make that choice for themselves, to make the determination whether they want to be self-governing independent nations. And I have, for many, many, many years, said that the conversation that we're having here in Texas should be going on in every single solitary state. And if you go to that website, usexit.org, you go to usexit.org, and you can just go through each of the states, right? You can go take a look at them. Let's pull up Oklahoma. And here's what it is. Here's the poll numbers from Oklahoma, right? This is it. It's about 58% of the state. Even the bottom, the floor for polling there was 28%, right? That's the floor. So, they had an organized independence movement at one time. But look, like here are the stats that you see on usexit.org. If they were an independent nation, they would be the 53rd largest economy on the planet, right? We're talking out of about 190 to 200 recognized self-governing independent nations, right? They'd have a GDP of 266 billion ahead of Nigeria. They got 4.1 million people, more than the whole of Uruguay, right? So in other words, Uruguay has, less population than Oklahoma, and they get to be a self-governing independent nation, right? They're in the top 6, right? So they're one of the few states in the country's top 6 for both crude oil and natural gas. So it's not like they don't have the energy resources. But that's the point, right? You can take this with any state. I mean, you go look at Florida. Florida's another good example. About 9.5 million people would back independence if it was put on a ballot. Go look at they would be the 16th largest economy on the earth. $1.7 trillion GDP, ahead of Indonesia. They got 23 million people, more than the whole of Burkina Faso, who is, again, an independent, self-governing independent nation. So what you find is that these people that say, well, Texas couldn't do it, like that guy who sent that a while ago, or, frankly, any state. If you go and start comparing to these other self-governing independent nations around the world, then if you say that these states can't make it, then what is your criteria? What are you basing that on, right? Are you just basing it off of, your gut, what you feel like? Because that's not what the data shows, right? That's not the real world. The real world says that just about every single solitary state within the United States would be phenomenal, right? That their rankings would be incredible. And we have to remember that a lot of the GDP rankings and economy and a lot of those things are effectively suppressed by the imbalanced and broken relationship with the federal system, right? So when when the governor is off, what could these states do? See, that's what I think about. I think about building the future. I think about what Texas would be able to do, what we'd be able to accomplish and achieve in the absence of I don't know, federal regulatory accumulation, or inflation that effectively wipes out $150,000 of personal value in one year, or all of these things we talk about. I'm thinking about the opportunity. I'm thinking about looking to the horizon. That's what I'm looking at. A lot of these people just too scared. But the reality is that if every single state started thinking of themselves in those terms, in comparison with existing self-governing independent nation states, and then realize that in the absence of the broken relationship with the federal government, that those statistics would even be better, then you would have all 50 states clamoring for what we're doing here. The good news is that Texas and a handful of other states right now have caught the vision. We know what it would look like, right? We know no nation on the planet has as their national motto, we're number 2, right? Everybody wants to be the best, but you can't strive to be the best, to be everything you can inside this existing system. It's just a reality. So anyway, hey, thank you for that question. All right, we got about 10 minutes, so let me get over here and just plow through some of these. Let's see if we can do a rapid fire round, because I really want to sneak peek something for you guys. Wow. Corinne asks on the texting app, she's like, what about the Abbott app? And I'm thinking you're talking about Abbott's mobile app. New people who went to training, app wanted your contact list. Thankfully, people said no and no way. I would suggest that you go read Sarah Fields' reporting on the Abbott app, and what there was an independent technical research report written that examined the Abbott app, and it found some pretty concerning things. Obviously, Abbott's camp denied it. But that's the thing about code and numbers and things of that nature. Facts are just facts, and they refuted really none of it satisfactorily. So, being in tech myself, I paid very close attention to that. And look, if you use relational organizing on the Texian app, one of the things it will ask you on the mobile app is if you want to connect your contacts. Now, it never stores it on our system. It actually encrypts it on your phone itself. It just matches to us and then sends you the information. But see, that's common privacy first design, right? Because if data's being snuck off to server someplace else and they're bagging your contacts and all that other kind of stuff, that's bad. That's bad news. That's maybe an old way of doing things. But the Texian app, for us, we designed it to be really clearly privacy conscious first, right? To make sure that no personal identifying information gets revealed and all. There's all those things. I'm not going to compare our app to his, but I will say ours is way better than his. Just saying. Anyway, thanks for that question. Let's get up here. Robert, what info on Canadian secession? You said secretion. I'm guessing that you mean secession because I don't know anything about Canadian secretions. Okay. But he's what info on Canadian secession? I heard something about their progress. Yeah, I talked about it today or mentioned it briefly on that interview with Chris Salcedo. There's an article about it on Texian Partisan. But the reality is, look, Alberta is heading for a vote. It's not the initial vote they wanted, but it's a vote to have the vote, which is kind of weird, but at least they're getting one, right? So Alberta, what is called the Texas of Canada, they will tell you that Texas is the Alberta of the United States, but that's the longstanding rivalry. But Alberta is going to get an opportunity to vote on their future, on self-determination, on independence. And we're going to be cheering them on. We should all be pointing to Alberta as an example because the premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, she said, I'm not in favor of separating, but I am in favor of letting the people vote on it. What a novel concept. Just wow, right? How novel, how unique. Kind of the same thing we're asking the people here in the legislature and the government in Texas, why we want the Texas independence referendum. Look, you don't have to agree with Texas withdrawing from the Union. But what is inarguable is that the people should, at a very minimum, have the right to vote on the issue. And when it goes on a ballot, if you don't want Texas to withdraw, then you get to go vote no. But just because it's something you don't want doesn't mean you should prevent me or anyone else from being able to voice our opinion on it if it is the opposite of what you want. And I've said it time and time again. The ones that are the absolute most adamant that they do not want to vote on this are the ones that are the most adamant that Texas not withdraw, which tells you that they believe that when it goes on a ballot, it will win and their position will fail and lose. Otherwise, they would call the bluff. They put it, if it was as they believed, that no one believed in this, then they would put Texas independence on a ballot and watch it go down in flames and this idea die for a generation. But the fact that they fight so hard to keep the independence question off a ballot here in Texas tells you that they know what the answer will be. And the answer will be, yes, we want Texas to be a self-governing independent nation. Otherwise, right? Otherwise, they would have already put it on a ballot. It's the reality of it. Okay. let's see what else we got here. Oh, I'm running out of time. Okay. All right. So sneak peek time. Are you guys ready for something like really sneak peek? This is not going to be the detailed walkthrough like I did with Can Texas Make It, but I am going to show you something, and it will either drop tomorrow or Monday. But I'm going to give you a sneak peek because some of you have this is something that we have talked about for quite some time, and so yeah, let's just I'll announce to you that we're going to launch. But here it is. So tomorrow, Monday, more than likely Monday, we'll be officially launching the Texas Outside Money Index. And essentially, what it does, and I will blow this up in the window for you so you can see it. It answers a question that many of you have had for quite some time. We've talked about it. The TNM has advocated for a ban on campaign contributions from outside of Texas for over a decade. And we haven't been able to get any traction from legislators on that. In fact, the only person to ever file a piece of legislation that is even remotely aligned with our position on it was former Speaker of the House, Dade Phelan. He filed it this last session. It surprised everyone, including us. But here's what it does. Our our logic, our position behind this is if a foreign national cannot donate money to Texas candidates, aka from China or Mexico or anywhere else, then why can California and New York, and you've heard me say before, the K Street lobbyists in Washington, D.C. So understand what I'm showing you here is a preview, and the figures will be continue to be updated as we get this thing ready for launch. But we break it all down, right? So we go historical all the way back to we pulled all the data all the way back to 2000 on the state side, back to 2024 on the federal side. That's why these numbers are going to change, and it's still processing because we've got to reconcile cutoff dates. But essentially, this is what you're going to be able to find. You pick a candidate or a PAC, and you'll be able to see how much of their campaign contributions came in from Texas and how much came in from outside. And so every single person running for office or holding office, to a certain extent, right? We can't get in municipal races, school board, any of that stuff. But basically, anybody above the county level, for now, will have an index number, right, for this cycle. And you're gonna you're gonna be able to see, look, John Huffman, who ran for state senator, 95.1% outside of Texas of the $3.4 million. And this is lifetime. I think he only ran in that one cycle, but 95.1% of that came from outside of Texas. We go down through who paid, who the individual contributions were from, how much money came through the political action committees, right? And political action committees even have their own index number to show you that. And so, because that money blends from those PACs, to show you that, so if 94% of a PAC's money comes from outside of Texas and that PAC gives $1 to a candidate, then we attribute 94 cents of that to outside of Texas because it's blended. So we found a good way to account for that pass through, how the PACs are shields for that sort of thing. But look, here's Texas Sands PAC, 1.193. Yeah, I mean it's a lot, right? It's a lot of money. So of the 1.2 million they gave, that's at 99.4%. So that's how much was attributed to Huffman. Then here's the Texas Defense PAC. So that we also took money that PACs spent on support of a candidate. So not direct contributions, but in support of a candidate. And, you see crazy things like this. You want to see where the pack is, where this pack came from. Oh, look, it's Las Vegas Sands. This is the casino lobby. Here's Miriam Adelson, right? So we're blowing all of this information out. You can see here we even have maps on all of the individual profiles to show you the states that it came from and what amounts, what the dominant states were, and to show you what in-state contributions were to give you some context. And so anyway, look, you're going to get your opportunity to kind of go through this. The data will always be accessible. We have state by state profiles, so you can go in and this is lifetime. But what's interesting is over $1 billion historical all the way back came from outside of Texas. And look here, we even have the District of Columbia, DC. Good old DC. District of Columbia is the largest out-of-state source of money in Texas politics. It's federal, right? So, look, our methodology is entirely published, our entire data set, and we even are showing head-to-heads for races that are going to be on the ballot right now. So if you want to see where candidates that are on the ballot are with their amount of money from outside of Texas, you're going to be able to see that as well. So hopefully you like this. This is going to be a real good companion for everyone. Oh, and the other cool part that I didn't show you. Let me go down here. Well, no, I'm not picking on John Huffman, right? He just happens to be that top of that list. But each of the profiles actually has share cards, right? So you'll be able to download the graphic or share it. Here's the outside percentage. Here's the total of money from outside of Texas. This is how many of the donors are out of state, out of the whole donor list for that donor. And here's the top state. And so those are all individual cards that you can download. You can copy links. You can post on X, Facebook, etc. So if you're excited about this, let me know in the comments wherever you're watching, because I am something that people have been asking for quite some time, something we've wanted to be able to provide for everyone. But it's going to be a useful utility, I do believe, for making sure that everyone knows just exactly who is throwing money to manipulate Texas elections. So, and I say manipulate, they're following the law. They're just, the law is wrong. It's just wrong. So, all right, folks. Well, I got to tell you, that is going to be it for me tonight. We are at a little bit beyond the hour mark. I want to thank you all very much for joining me for Late Night Coffee Talk tonight. A reminder, if you're not already on the Texian app, head over to Texian.app. It's literally on the crawler right now. Make sure you get signed up over there and do the things I'm talking about. Get over there, sign up, become a declared Texian, become a member, apply to help organize your county. Look, I want you guys to apply in such numbers that I got David and Angela sending me emails like hate mail. I want them to send me hate mail because they are so busy with your applications, right? So just go do that. If you don't do anything else this week, do that one thing, okay? Real quick, a reminder, you can get your logoed merchandise, T&M, Texian, all that stuff. Go to TexianStore.com, and the proceeds from TexianStore.com go directly to benefit the work of the T&M. And of course, get your news at TexianPartisan.com, right? And that's the place. Oh, wait, hang on. Because I don't have access to share the card on here, I'll just have to do this. TexianPartisan.com. This is where you go get all your pro-Texas news. That's where it is. We come at it from a perspective that is unique in the marketplace, and that is a Texas first perspective. So be sure, TexianPartisan.com. All right, friends. With that, I am going to call it a night. See, I can't even do my stuff. It's like it's hung up. It's weird. Anyway, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to end my squabble with the tech tonight, and I'm going to leave you with the words I leave you with every time we're together. They're not my words. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now. And the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.